Paul Anka told me this, actually. He said the stakes are too high for amateurs, Al.
FOH Magazine presents The Stakes Are Too High for Amateurs, the Al Siniscal Story.
Fly me to the moon, let me play.
Al Siniscal has worked with pop history's greatest artists. Fellow soundman Stan Miller deemed him an engineer's engineer and one of the few of us to have a P.E. after his name. He applied an Ivy League education with a military man's dedication to zero defects. He built his company, A1 Audio, into a powerhouse before selling it to PRG in 1999. But it could have ended up very differently.
St. Louis. They call it Greater St. Louis.
Al was born in St. Louis on July 6, 1941, and he spent his early years in the town of Rolla, Missouri. There, he began his education in a humble one-room schoolhouse. The family moved to St. Louis, where he attended Chaminade, a Catholic prep school. He turned heads at the school's science fairs, where he once built a Tesla coil from scratch and made a spark of 150,000 volts jump 15 centimeters. He attended Washington University and joined the Air Force ROTC. With a BA in engineering and MBA in hand, he went to work for what is now Exxon in New York in 1965. The sometimes banjo plucker loved being in the center of the folk music universe. After a short stint there, his skills were needed at Hill Air Force Base in Ogden, Utah, where he would spend his off hours experimenting with electronics. One night, Al and other fellows from the base piled into a car and drove the 460 miles to Las Vegas for some R&R. Counting cards at the blackjack table proved to be too much like work. So the boys found themselves in Caesar's showroom.
We were at Caesar's Palace, which was opening in 1968, and during the show there was a bad hum. Of course, we're working, we're all engineers. We're working on the Minuteman missile program, so we're pretty familiar with grounding and so on. And it's after the show, and the curtain opens, and why don't you try lifting the ground, And so, the guy goes, oh, so what do you mean? Well, how do you do that? The mixing was usually a Shure Vocal Master. We helped the person solve his problem so at that point he said, sure, come on upstage, we'll show you around. So we got to know the guys.
This planted the seeds of his post-military career, which came sooner than he expected. In 1969, a serious vehicle accident led to an honorable military medical discharge. I had to decide if I wanted to go back to New York and be a yuppie or do something else, he says. He chose something else. And to Vegas he went.
Viva Las Vegas! Viva! Viva Las Vegas!
First on his kitchen table, then in a storage unit, Al started tackling the audio issues of the day. Realizing the loss of power that can happen between a power amp and a speaker, he hit upon the idea of placing the amp in the speaker box. It was a monumental breakthrough. For the Righteous Brothers, he built two bi-amplified JBL 4320 studio monitor loudspeakers without the specified passive crossovers. Meanwhile, back at Caesar's, he got to apply his developments to Paul Anka's show. At that point, Al decided to build a tri-amplified, self-powered loudspeaker system. Anka loved it and wanted to buy it, but Al rented it instead, with himself attached. But what to charge? Anka's sound engineer, Chips Davis, told him to charge $3. Al thought, 3 what? And then Davis said, 300 a day. I almost fell over, Siniscal says.
It didn't take long for me to figure out that when I was in the Air Force, I was making $227 a month. And when I was at Caesar's Palace, I was able to get $300 a day, plus I could rent my equipment for $300 a day. You know, at that point, I gave up the yuppie world.
Suddenly, A1 expanded rapidly.
Tough audio job? You bet. A job for A1 Audio. Because when you want great sound and you only get one chance, you need A1 Audio Systems.
In 1971, the March-April issue of Recording Engineer Producer magazine hit the streets. And there was Al's article on buy and try amplification. The article revolutionized the industry. Next, he discovered that if he injected foam into the horns, it would eliminate ringing. His expertise was used in creating better monitors for the performers as well. In 1974, he developed the Vertical Integrated Power System, a bold precursor to the line array system. These cabinets were big horn-loaded bass reflex cabinets that with the mid-high end matching enclosure were 10 feet tall. In October 1978, an article called The Doobie Brothers Touring System appeared. It focused on the success of flying the system in concert arenas. Gradually, over the next 20 years, everyone adopted these technical innovations. Al worked on a Sinatra show in Rio de Janeiro's Maracana Soccer Stadium in 1980. This gig landed him in the 1981 Guinness Book of World Records for the largest live audience for a solo performer. 175,000 people showed up to hear the crooner. He was a gifted businessman, too. In the early 1980s, he invested in a little backwater town called Branson, Missouri. A1 would be the first, but not the last, pro sound company in what would become an entertainment mecca. After selling A1 to PRG, Al met perhaps his biggest failure: retirement. Operating as A1 Entertainment Services, he has executed impressive installs. He oversaw a complete audio system upgrade to what is now Planet Hollywood that included a permanently installed L Acoustics VDOSC PA, which at the time was the largest such system in the U.S. Al has also been a lifesaver in the very literal sense. For the last 20 years, he has been a member of the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary and has participated in emergency operations where he's personally saved lives. With a pedigree like this, you'd think he'd be a titan running some multinational company. But he turned his back on all of that for a place called Las Vegas, where his scientific mind and ingenuity became focused on creating better live shows for those who performed there and beyond.